global banking system, or is it only the dollar economy? It has a problem.
I think it could be done globally.
But your thesis is that the solution to your first premise is that there's a crisis, and I seem to understand that you think it's a crisis of the tide of liquidity, and so that there will be insufficient liquidity in the domestic economy of the United States. Is that the area? Is that your? And then there's the solution offered is that the government either replace the Federal Reserve as the issuance authority, or issue in addition to what the Federal Reserve is
Or
issuing.
make the Federal Reserve actually a federal agency. So instead of
Nationalize
lending,
the Federal
yes. So instead of lending, money
issue
to the
direct from the
government,
Treasury.
It would, yes.
But it would issue under different rules. So you just said that it would stop issuing money as debt, and instead the money would be spent into circulation by the spending power of the Congress. Is that what you meant?
Say both. It would issue loans.
To member banks?
Yes. Well, the banks themselves would issue loans. The banks would be part of the Federal Reserve, right? So they could issue, essentially people would create their own money, like in a community currency system.
Ooh, that's a huge jump.
That you would monetize your own promise to repay. In other words, you go to the bank and you say, I have an idea, I'm going to use it for productive purposes, this is my idea, it'll take $50,000.
And so, banks already do that with whoever they think is creditworthy. So are you suggesting that the government would make more people creditworthy by some...
No, I'm suggesting that government would do exactly what banks are doing now. They would do fractional reserve banking, but you wouldn't need any reserves. So you would eliminate the need for reserves, you would eliminate the need to make profits, you would eliminate the parasite that is drawing profits off the top, and you would have the bank would be essentially a public lending organization, just like public libraries.
Well, I would see it as a managing partner, but the effect is the same. They would manage the operation of the system. They would handle the accounting system.
Yes.
They would, I could see how it would work. Yeah, sure.
There wouldn't be a board of directors or anything. It would still be run by basically the president of Congress, I suppose. If you say
Yes, and you don't have to have a body that's deciding how much money you're going to issue. You will issue according to what people want to borrow, which is the way it is now. That's one problem with 100% reserves.
So, well, if I don't have 100% in the bank, I don't spend 100%. I think that's a real practical way to exist, but the country can't. But I heard you say zero reserve, and as Chris says, some things go broke. Other things get blown up in bad weather, and that plant doesn't exist.
But what Alan is saying, that is just simply replaced from that wellspring of government. The government is like a source, and the government just creates more credit. But the danger
so it
is...
doesn't have to have the reserve, it just has to have the new issuance.
There are two dangers, the way that I see it. One is that it goes straight into consumption, and, Zimbabwe is what you get. If the Treasury creates credit and it goes straight into consumption, you get inflation. The second point is if the credit gets created and buys existing assets, you get asset price inflation. What I see as necessary is that the credit, whatever is necessary, goes interest-free into creating productive assets. That is what the Treasury should be for. And all of that value that flows from these productive assets then gets exchanged among society as necessary, and everybody gets what they need from like a dividend, a national dividend or whatever it is, and everybody has a really decent lifestyle, and if they want more, then they should work for more. So everybody's equal.
The Alaska Oil Fund comes back.
But the point is, they don't have to prove need. Everybody has a right, I think, to a proportional share in the national equity, which is the way I see the national the commonwealth. And I think everybody should have a piece of that. But what you're proposing, Alan, is the way in which the lifeblood of the wheel of commerce, actually the oil that, fuels the wheel of commerce, hydraulic fluid actually flows. That is what has to come. I agree. It has to come from the source, the Treasury, the people collectively. And maybe at a local level as opposed to a national level. So like in Alberta, you had Alberta Treasury, I was telling you, Alberta Treasury branches, as they're called, because that was where social credit flowed from in the 30s. But yeah, with you 100%.
In Zimbabwe, I think it's a misconception that they merely printed money and inflated prices. What happened was they had to print the money because the IMF refused to lend them anymore, and they were heavily in debt. And so they printed money, bought dollars with it to pay off their IMF loans in order to reestablish their credit rating in the world so they could borrow more. And the speculators knew that that's what they were doing, and therefore they kept raising the prices of dollars because the Zimbabwe government needed the dollars. They needed the money in dollars to pay off their loan. So it was actually the speculators that caused the inflation, and that's also what happened in Germany. It was private speculators who caused the inflation. So if you use that money, if you created money for productive use, like Hitler did in the 30s, you would not have inflation. You would create goods and services at the same time that you created money, so you would have supply and demand going up together, so you would not have inflation. The reason you have the inflation is because you're creating the money to pay off debt, and there's a speculator possibility of manipulating the cost of the money.